Hello. I'm live. If you hear any snoring, that's my dog. He's right there next to me. I'm reading Life in Spirit. I'm still at chapter 18, which is entitled The Place of Healing. This is Harry Edwards' account of the afterlife. I have already read all the other chapters, which are concerning themselves with all manner of things in the afterlife. And in the sleeve note, he says here, this is the story of John and Mary. Any John, any Mary, brother and sister, husband and wife, sweethearts, friends. The story of you and me. But with this difference, John and Mary have died and have entered into their new life in spirit. Harry Edwards was a renowned healer, and this third part of chapter 18 is entitled The Healing of Infectious Diseases. He goes into quite some detail, and I stumbled a little bit in the last chapter, but I continue now. So, John and Mary are in the place of healing, and this is the third part, the healing of infectious diseases. Here is another illustration. When influenza is contracted, or any other sickness arising from infection, we discover another instance of a highly organized campaign to defeat the invading bacteria, which can be likened to a preparation necessary for the winning of a major battle in war, but with a difference. Conflict on the battlefield is one of skill and attrition, and it usually ends there. But with conflict within the human body, a peace is ensured by establishing safeguards for the future, by the building up of antibodies, to act as a line of future defense against any similar incursion of the invading bacteria. The hazards threatening our well-being are continuous. With every breath we take into our lungs, countless number of germs seek to establish and propagate themselves in our bodies, and if left unimpeded, would bring about illness and even death. So it is with food and drink they are subject to infection too. As soon as an animal is killed, so putrefaction commences. One of the causes of tuberculosis in humans was found to be due to infected milk, but this danger has been largely overcome through pasteurization. Such bacterial invasions are with us all the time, and yet the vast majority of us do not succumb to disease as might be expected. It is worth some thought to appreciate why this is. To combat the invasion of harmful bacteria, there are lines of defense in depth. Behind each line is an intelligent control. The leukocytes are our defenders. They attack the invaders and consume them. They are then, in turn, carried away by the phagocytes and further by the macrophages, which keep the battlefield clean and tidy. As one wave of leukocytes is fully employed, so another wave comes into the affray. Messengers have gone to the bone marrow factories to turn out more and more leukocytes to build up the reserve army of defenders, and progressively they go forward into battle. The full battle scene is surveyed by the intelligence-in-chief, and this directs where reserves are needed most and resolves the battle plan. It is when the defending leukocytes can be mustered in depth that a strong attack can be made to isolate groups of the enemy bacteria. Then, once this has been achieved and the bacteria is surrounded and attacked on all sides, the end of the infection comes within sight. By this time, the leukocytes have become expert in the art of attacking that particular bacteria, and this experience is not lost, for there is kept in store a supply of specialist fighters for attacking the same species of bacteria should they come again, and that is why, with so many an infectious disease, once it has been conquered, it never re-establishes itself again. A common example is the purpose behind vaccination against smallpox. This was 1976. While the brain is the center of a fantastic communication system and is able to give directives, it can be reasonably assumed that it is not aware when infectious evasion takes place until the latter has established itself and commenced to create the symptoms of sickness. The defense system comes into operation immediately the invader arrives, and during our lifetime this occurs scores and scores of times without our being aware of any symptoms, because the leukocytes have done their good job before the brain has known anything of peril. So, if the existence of a bodily intelligence is accepted, then we can go on further to see how it can be purposefully used in healing. But first, let us look at the way the brain serves us. The conscious mind can be likened to a mirror, on which thought pictures are received. With a wound, the injured state is reported to the brain. Pain is felt, and this sensation of pain becomes a recorded experience on the conscious mind. When a musical sound reaches the ear, its tonal qualities are transmitted along the auditory nerves to the brain, from whence it is interpreted into a conscious mind experience. So it is that all physical experiences associated with the senses, memory, recorded information, knowledge, and motivation are acknowledged as a presentation on the mirror, and from these the mind can establish conclusions, appreciations, and subsequently motivate action. When a wound is received, the general reactions sensed at the wound site are appreciated as an experience by the conscious mind, and this will be far more vivid if the eye is able to see the wound, thus completing the mind picture. From the mind will go the instructions to the bodily intelligence to get busy. The mind will then be informed of the changes taking place, when the bleeding stops, and so on. But these will be observable changes only. The mind will not be conscious of the actual process of the leukocytes fighting and scavenging against infection. It will not determine the flow of reinforcing leukocytes summoned to the wound. Neither will it control the act of bridging the wound with platelets and all the other precise organized states of change taking place in the healing. The mind and the body intelligence are in close cooperation with each other. There is the most wonderful teamwork. If the mind has knowledge of the means whereby the bodily intelligence can be directed to take specific action, then it will be so. This is one of the ways in which spiritual healing intelligence can pass instructions through the patient's mind to the bodily intelligence, telling it how to act. The brain is a wonderful computer. Information is fed into it from countless number of nerves. They record every touch, every sound. If there comes an experience which interferes with the smooth operation of our internal economy, then the brain is informed of this and counteraction is commenced. The brain receives items of our knowledge and experience and is able to relate one item of information with another. Even when everything is normal and all the body processes are carrying out their function smoothly, the brain computer is kept informed of this. Through our sense, the brain is bombarded with impressions from everything we see, touch, hear, taste, or smell. Through our eyes, an ever-changing vista is being recorded every moment. At the same time, if one is listening to music, scores of thousands of nerves are activated within the inner ear, receiving clearly every tone of the orchestration and conveying them to the brain and thence to the mind as experiences. At the same time, the sense of touch is active and a ceaseless flow of physical impressions is transmitted to the brain. The tightness of the shoes, the touch of clothing to the skin, the pressure of those parts of the body pressing on the chair, and so on, are all recorded. Coexistent with the above, an incalculable number of messages is being continually fed into the brain, reporting the condition of each of the bodily systems and every part of the body. If there is any upset within, say, the digestion or circulation, this is reported. The brain is conscious of all bodily movements of the heartbeat, the breathing, and so on, and maintains a strict supervision over them. It deals with the disposal of waste and the intake of health-giving energies. It supervises the working of the kidneys and every other organ functional process and the maintenance of the correct body temperatures. All this gives some idea of the fantastic communication system we possess, of which the brain is the computer. The brain is the servant of the mind, and apart from the subconscious control over the internal functioning, the brain possesses no executive ability. All the experiences the brain records are available to the mind and the bodily intelligence, which, when necessary, takes independent action. For example, if the fat deposits stored in various parts of the body are needed to supplement the fuel the body needs to consume, it is the bodily intelligence and not the brain which makes the decision where the fat is to be taken from and to arrange for its transportation to the digestive system. Such positive action requires direction and decision, which neither the brain nor mind possesses. If we take in too much of any vitamin, or if our sugar level is too high, intelligent supervision is needed to determine the amount of excess. When there is a directing intelligence, there needs to be a center from which it operates. In considering the sitting of the headquarters for the bodily intelligence, there is no proven evidence where it exists, but there are conclusions worthy of consideration. It is apparent that there is a close linking between the bodily intelligence with the physical mind, spirit mind, and the brain. If this were not so, then spiritual healing could not take place. There must be a center where thought direction is received from spirit in order that it can be transformed into physical experience. This center is thought to be the pineal gland. Not very much has been scientifically determined about its purpose or function. It is a small reddish structure situated on the upper part of the midbrain and has been said to be the seat of the third eye, with occult powers. In excess, it exerts an influence upon the spleen, which is reactive to emotional stresses. It has an intimate contact with the endocrine system, the brain, and the bodily intelligence, and, perhaps most important, with the spirit mind too. The suggestion is put forward that this gland acts as the receiving center for communication from spirit, as with clairvoyance. And it is the center for receiving and passing on spirit impressions and directives to the consciousness of the bodily intelligence on how to cooperate with the healing treatment. We know that most physical diseases have their causation in psychosomatic disorders, and it follows that if the pineal gland is closely associated with the spirit self, then such disharmonies are its concern, and these may be the way in which mental and bodily health can be upset. Conversely, the pineal gland can provide an entry for spiritual healing to overcome sickness, restoring physical health and mind balance. On the understanding that the bodily intelligence exists, we will now see... Gosh, this is a very long chapter. We will now see how we can put the theory into practice, and the suggestions which follow show some of the ways in which this can be done. At this stage of human wisdom, this approach will have to be superficial rather than detailed, for our minds do not yet possess the knowledge how or when to instruct the bodily intelligence to act in specialized ways, but we can apply our theory in a general way. It follows that if we wish to talk to our bodily intelligence, we need to get into a state of attunement with it. We cannot expect this to be achieved in a casual manner. We shall need a little time to establish within ourselves a state of attunement with a healing purpose. We must picture in our mind what we want the bodily intelligence to do. Our conscious mind must possess specific intention to transfer our thoughts through the brain to the bodily intelligence. Let us suppose that you, the reader, have a pain. Try to evaluate it, to attune to it, by mentally analyzing it, gauging its intensity, the area affected by it, and so on. In this way, the mind receives a true appreciation of it, and is able to relegate its effect in relation to the total bodily condition. One of the results of this is that the pain will lose much of its intensity and importance. It becomes knowledgeably accepted. Now, seek to determine the cause of pain. If it comes from a septic or inflamed condition, you can inwardly ask for the bodily intelligence to get busy, to energize the leukocytes, to cleanse the condition and to ease the pain as quickly as it can. If there's a painful muscular sensation, as with fibrositis, rheumatism, etc., follow out the same process, but with a thought directive to the bodily intelligence to overcome the cause of the pain by speeding up the circulation in the affected area, with the objective of carrying away the particles which have become deposited in the tissues. And if there is allied to this effort gentle massage or the application of warmth, so with the combined effort a speedy reduction of the stress can usually be effected. During the healing of a patient, the healer is attuned to both the spirit doctor and the spirit self of the patient. Furthermore, the healer's spirit mind is linked with the patient's spirit mind, and as the latter is intimately associated with the patient's bodily intelligence, then it is easy to understand how, through this blending of spirit with spirit, the healing directive can influence the bodily intelligence of the patient. In this way, the healer's body, mind, and spirit unite with the healing purpose, creating a state of affinity between them through the directive of the conscious mind. This brings the patient's mental or physical disharmony into focus with the healing intention and enables the patient's bodily intelligence to be used to the fullest advantage, to receive and put into action any purposeful instruction from the spirit doctor and so accelerate the patient's recovery. The healer's mind does not possess the wisdom to do this, but he can help to make conditions easier by which spirit instruction can be given, and so instead of remaining a purely passive instrument of the spirit doctors, he tends to become a more cooperative attuned instrument to the better use by spirit. An appreciable measure of success is now commonly observed in treating most kinds of paralysis, such as that resulting from polio, disseminated sclerosis, strokes, etc. If it is a stroke, the directive is to restore the functional balance of the brain. With sclerosis, the origin of the trouble is often seated in the pressures on the nerves where they emanate from the spinal column. Usually the spine is very stiff or locked. It is immovable and has thickened with deposits, and fibrositis has entered into the adjacent tissues. The restoration of spinal mobility is usually brought about in short time and quite painlessly. By removing the pressure on the nerves, they have the opportunity to function again. In paralysis, the nerves have become inert, and so they need to be re-stimulated and encouraged to carry the messages from the brain to induce muscular movement. The stimulation of the nerves is the responsibility of the healing guide, but the building up of the return of coordination can be so much helped by the patient talking to the limbs, or, in other words, the intelligence which controls movement. For example, if the leg is heavy, inert, incapable of being lifted, or has but a limited response, we talk to the leg so that through the mind the message is carried down through the nerves to tell it what the movement is to be carried out. A little time may be needed to allow the message, faint as it may be at first, to travel down and to sustain the intention for the movement to come. The patient is gently encouraged to move the limb as directed, assisted with a minimum of help. In this way, perceptible progress often leads to a reasonable degree of restoration, sometimes completely. The healer needs to change the patient's outlook from one of hopelessness, of cannot do this or that, into one of expectancy. For as long as hopeless attitude is held, nothing much can be done. We need to make the patient's mental and bodily intelligence an ally of the healing intention. Very often, with long-standing conditions, the mind and body have accepted the situation that the limb cannot function, and therefore no effort is made to seek it. The bodily intelligence has also come to accept the situation, the brain being no longer instructed to seek movement, and so a sense of inertia has come about. If, through spiritual healing, a happier condition can be restored, then the first effort must surely be to arouse the bodily intelligence to start working again, and the mind to send messages down the nerves to restore movement. This is what we term talking to the patient's limbs, but actually it is the mind and the body intelligence which we appeal to. This is very good. He encourages very much self-talk, doesn't he? I shall finish here this part 3. I'm afraid there will be a part 4, but it's a long chapter, and I hope you have a good Tuesday. Bye-bye. Tuesday, May 24th, 2022.